A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, I have video footage of this. I will share it at the end. Nobody thinks it's real. Like, it seems like it's doctored footage, but it's not. I swear on my life. Basically, both my sister and my old roommate used to work at this, like, music school daycare center for kids in the Upper East Side. The music classes would happen upstairs, but downstairs in the basement, there was this, like, daycare situation, and you had to work down there. And they both hated being down there. And I'd been down there a few times too. It is really scary. Like, you know when you just get a feeling about a place? Like, that is the basement. It was horrible. They would both, like, hear voices when their co-teacher hadn't showed up yet. Or, like, the cleaner would go downstairs and all the toys would be arranged in, like, a circle. And she'd be, like, in tears being like, are you guys playing a prank on me? I seriously, like, I don't feel safe here. The kids would all say really creepy shit. Like, they'd say, like, there's a really, like, mean guy in, like, the tunnel, like, a little play tunnel thing, or, like, there's, like, someone mean over in, like, the dark corner of the basement. So when COVID hit, obviously no one was going into the daycare. It essentially shut down. But the owners installed cameras just in case, like, anything happened while they weren't there. And it picked up the most insane shit ever. It's a minute and a half long, so here you go.
Okay, so this is not my story. It happened to my brother, but it's so terrifying that I tell everybody I know, and I have a picture to show. But to give a little backstory, my brother worked at a sober house a few years ago, and the house that, like, everybody stayed at was super old. It was used by, like, soldiers in the Civil War or something. So it has, like, a ton of history. And one of the guys that was staying there, he always felt like something or someone was watching him when he was in his room. And he had, like, unexplained things happen in his room. Enough so where he set up a motion sensing camera. And one weekend he goes away. So there's nobody in his room. His door is completely, like, locked, closed. And he has no animals. So basically nothing could have set off this motion sensing camera, but it goes off and it takes this picture, and it's so scary. Like, there's a figure in the picture that, to me, it looks like the Grim Reaper, but nobody can explain what it is, and it's, let me show it. Okay, here's the picture. What the hell is that figure? Like, that is not a coat hanging or anything. It literally looks like someone walking or something walking. I think that, like, looks like a little face looking at the camera. And then, like, down here, you can see it's, like, kind of transparent because that, like, black stick is like a broom or something. And then it looks like his arms or his hooves or whatever the fuck those are like transparent. And it's like wearing a black cloak. Like, that is literally the Grim Reaper.
Okay, I'm gonna try really hard to summarize this because I could literally talk about this forever. I'm gonna tell you guys my dad's story because I have my own that I think is really, really freaky, but his is like another level. When my dad was a teenager, he was a little more on the rebellious side, and my grandma was very, very religious. She always has been. And so when his friend came over with a Ouija board and said, "Do you want to do this?" He was like, "Okay, sure."
I think also at the time people were more acute to believe that Ouija boards weren't real because we didn't have the internet and we weren't able to hear people's stories about this. So it's my dad, my dad's friend, and my dad's brother, so my uncle. They all decided to do it together because they're all friends. They sit down, they open the board, and they have the spirit come through. It's a girl, she says she's a pilgrim, I don't remember the name, and they talk to her, and it's fine, they have a good experience. So because they had a good experience and it was fun, they did it again and again. They did it about 2 or 3 times. Everything was fine every single time until the last time they ever used it. The last time they ever used a Ouija board, they sat down and they were talking to this one specific spirit. Again, she's the only one that they ever talked to. While they're talking to her, she's in the middle of spelling something out, the board stops, and the pattern, the way it starts to move, starts to change. So pretty immediately, they can tell that it's not her anymore, there's something else there, and they're kind of confused, so they ask, is someone else here? The board moves to yes, and they're like, okay, who are you? And it starts to spell out a name. I'm not going to say the name because I believe names have power and it genuinely scares me, but I will finger spell it. Okay? It's pretty easy to figure out who this is, you'll see. And the way that the board is moving now is different. It's ominous. It like has a negative energy to it. So they ask the person or whoever, they ask the spirit, what do you want? Like, why are you here? Why did you get rid of the other spirit? The board starts to spell out over and over again, I want to kill you. I want to kill you. Over and over. So this is enough for them. They close out the board, they don't talk about it, they never use it again, they don't touch it. But obviously this experience stuck with my dad. It's scary. So when he became an adult and Google had just kind of become a thing, he decides to Google it and see if there's any information about this spirit. Nothing comes up. There's not much on Google at this point, so he's like, oh, okay, whatever. A couple years later, once it's a little bit more established, he Googles again, and there's a little bit more information. Other people are talking about this and the experiences that they've had, and he's like, oh, that's really weird. And then when the internet becomes fully established, YouTube's a thing, Reddit's a thing, it's there. He Googles it a 3rd time, and at this point, there's a full-length feature film about it, YouTube videos, Reddit threads, like thousands of people talking about how they've had an experience with this one specific spirit. That's why I said it's really easy to figure out who this is if you actually want to. I wouldn't really recommend, I don't know. So of course this terrifies him. He's like, oh my god, like that's crazy. And I 100% believe my dad because I grew up hearing the story before the internet was a really established thing, so I know he's not making it up. So yeah, I definitely have a handful of my own to tell, but that is my dad's.
If you don't like paranormal ghost stories, scroll past. Stemming back from probably the age of 3, from what my memory can remember, is I had this spirit in my bedroom at my mum's house and I referred to it as Charlie, like Charlie the ghost. My parents are the most agnostic people and do not believe in anything, and only to this day, a few weeks ago, when I've explained to them what's been happening in the house I'm currently in, where things have gone sky high, they finally come out and said, yeah, we admit we've heard the things that you spoke about. I remember seeing my wardrobes open, figures walk around my bed, things pulling on my legs when I was asleep, TVs turning on, and hearing a lot of footsteps up the stairs, which is what my parents can clarify they've also heard. From 20 years old, I moved into a flat in Surrey by myself. I started seeing a lot more movement in a sense of my kettle would turn on in the middle of the night, my oven would set timers on its own, doors would shut, I could see marks like drawn on the mirrors when you've had a shower, like steam marks. I moved back to my parents' house through COVID for 6 months. Behind the door of my flat there was like a telephone table, and it was like a single drawer, just a lamp on it, and when I came back it had done a full 180 and was facing a complete different direction. I spoke to my landlord and my neighbours, everyone clarified no one has been in your flat. And then I thought I'm going to put a Ring doorbell inside my flat. Nothing to do with the ghost, more to see if anybody was coming inside the flat. If you're aware with the Ring doorbells, you have 2 settings on there, which is movement detected and person detected. As I went back to my parents for a few more weeks, I had a notification there was a person detected in your flat. So I can't really explain this one, but lights. So basically, this is the door to my bedroom. That's my lamp turning on. So they're just minor things that I've caught on camera that I can show, because obviously I've not really caught things on camera. I don't set them up to purposely catch him out. I was never scared of him, and that was the thing I didn't really understand, is I've always been scared of the dark. I sleep with a lamp on, etc, etc. I was never scared of this Gus, is what I called him, whilst I lived in my flat. I had been to see 3 different clairvoyants, and every single one of them had said to me, there's a young boy attached to you in spirit. Are you aware of anyone in the family who's passed, etc, etc? And I questioned my entire family. No one of a young boy had passed in my family. So I found it weird these three people picking up on stuff. However, 2 years later, I went to see one of the same clairvoyants that I found was quite interesting. I wanted to look further into this spirit. I didn't even have to ask the question. She looked at me dead in the eye and said, "Have I seen you before?" And I said, "Yes, 2 years ago." She said, "I think I told you you had a spirit attached to you." And I said, "Yeah, that's correct." She said, "It's not a spirit, it's a ghost." She asked me where I came from, and I said, "Essex." She was like, "No, it's not Essex." So I said, "Okay, well, I was born in, like, my hometown." And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." She said, "Have you done any research on your, like, area of your house?" And I said, "No." She was like, "I can see, like, the justice system, like a police station." And proceeded to question my mum and say, like, what is, like, surrounding our house? So I mentioned the police station, and she further explained, yes, if you leave our estate, the new block of flats that you can see were a big old police station. So everything this woman had said has added up. When she was telling me about the ghost attached to me, I'm not able to look into it. They're telling me not to look at it. I don't want to look at it. So I was like, should I be worried? Should I be scared? Don't be scared. However, I need to tell you to tell it to leave. You need to tell it to go away. When you go home, to which is where it's present now, in this current house that I'm in now, you need to tell this ghost, Gus, to go away. I went home 3 days later to where Ethan was here, and I got in bed. In my head, I just said, "Please, Gus, can you leave us alone now?" And from that night, everything went wrong. I'm going to do a part 2 on this. I had a clairvoyant tell me that the ghost that she feels is attached to me needs to leave me alone. If you've not seen part 1, it'll be on my page. Following on from this clairvoyant meeting, obviously I'd explained I had this spirit attached to me. She was aware of the spirit to then confirm it was in fact a ghost. She didn't want to look into it, didn't feel secure enough to look into it, but told me I need to tell it to leave. I, in my head, said, "Please, Gus, can you leave us alone?" I wasn't aware. I'm not really in touch with my spiritual side. I don't practice it. I'm not agnostic to it, but I didn't really look too much into it. Within 5 minutes of me mentally asking this ghost to leave me alone, the loudest bang happened. I woke Ethan up and said, "Did you just hear the bang?" And he said, "Yeah." We went back to sleep, woke up in the morning, 2 of our picture frames had fell onto the floor. There was no reason as to why they'd have fell on the floor. I've never been scared of this spirit, ghost. I'm suddenly starting to feel uneasy about it. In 2 days, I'd seen like black figures walking around, which sounds so bizarre, but you know when you see something in the corner of your eye and you think, okay, that was weird. See a figure, and I wouldn't pay attention, but I'd notice Ethan look at it. So I was like, okay, he's noticed it as well. I'd walk through really cold patches of the house. I'd hear footsteps, doors shutting, the usual things I used to experience as a child. I said to Ethan, I feel a really strong presence today, like here. And he was like, okay, no worries, like we'll keep an eye on it. Later that day, I can't really give you the layout of my house, but if you walk up the stairs, you're on the 2nd floor. So if you go across the hallway, you then go up another flight of stairs to the 3rd floor. So if you're standing on the 2nd floor, essentially the banister to the 3rd floor is behind your head. I walked up the stairs and I genuinely turned the lights on before I get to the next room. So I was turning on the lights, which were right in front of me, for the 3rd floor to go up to bed. As I hit the 2nd floor, I felt this gust of wind and I had this horrible vision of someone in the banister behind me going to grab me, and I've literally got goosebumps. I ducked, turned the light on and ran into the office room. Ethan came up the stairs with the bed in, and I said, "Can you just sit with me a minute while I moisturise? I don't want you to go upstairs." A few minutes later, we went upstairs, and there's a boiler door at the top of the stairs, which is on the landing before you go into our bedroom. We never go in there. It's towels that we give to guests or to use around the house. We don't use those towels. Ethan said, "Have you been in the boiler room? Like, why is the door open?" He confirmed he hasn't been in there. We both haven't been in there for as long as I can remember. The door was open. Coming back about 2 days before, I noticed a really weird reoccurring theme that my pearl bracelets, which I had about 4 of, were snapping repeatedly. This particular night when I'd gone up the stairs, I said to Ethan, like, "I'm just going to have a shower, like, get ready for bed." As I sat on the bed, Ethan was in our ensuite, and my phone was lay on the, like, windowsill of the ensuite. This was the movement I did. I essentially wanted Ethan to give me my phone from the ensuite and pass it to me, and I went, "Can I have my phone?" From that, the pearl bracelet that was on my wrist flew across, we're talking 8 or 9 foot, off my wrist, across the bed, through the bedroom, and landed at the top of the landing outside the bedroom, which is exactly where I said I felt there was a presence there that was looking at me through the banister. I googled a lot of stuff and I looked into it. Ethan's first reaction was, that was dramatic, and he was a bit shaken up by it. I googled into why pearl bracelets would be snapping. There's a whole lot of stuff on there if you guys want to have a look, of angels protecting you against negative energies that attach themselves to these form of like pearls, stones, diamonds, etc. Got in bed probably 3 days later. Me and Ethan both started hearing scratching. So I said, maybe it's the towels fell off the door because we have the sticky like hooks. He went in the ensuite, nothing fell off, and I pointed and said, Ethan, your dressing gowns fell off. So I assumed it was the sticky hook from the door that the dressing gown was hung on. As we moved the door, the dressing gown had just unhooked itself. The hook was still stuck to the door, and he's not wore that dressing gown for a while. Now it's getting warmer. It had unhooked itself and fell onto the floor. The night we watched a film, and I could see this figure walking by, like constantly next to me on the sofa. And I said to Ethan, he's here with us. I know he's here. Focused on this film. And then I saw him leave the front room into our doorway. So he went from here out into the doorway. And I didn't look at him, but I saw Ethan's head turn. And I looked at Ethan and said, did you just see that? And he was like, yeah. I was like, there you go. Just missed out a crucial piece of information whilst watching this back. But the night after the bracelet had flown across the room, essentially they've had to throw it that far, I woke up really ill. I'd had a sleepless night till like 4 a.m, woke up really ill with tonsillitis. Ethan was going to football. We sat downstairs. It was quite a warm day, and I was debating whether to go or not because I didn't want to be in the house, but my tonsillitis prevented me from going. We were both sat. The front room was a nice temperature. We had jumpers, dressing gowns on, etc. And I saw a shadow go across the wall, which Ethan can confirm also saw. As I put my hand out to what I felt was next to me, Ethan felt it, and I said, it's freezing there. There was a section of the sofa sat right next to us, which was ice cold. As we both looked down the end of the sofa, where the blinds come down and you've got the string to pull, the string was just swinging, like side to side.
And the window ain't open.
Yeah, no windows were open. And I, for the life of me, wish I wasn't so ill. I'd have left that house in a heartbeat. But I stayed all day that day. And I actually texted you, didn't I, to say, I'm done with this house. I don't want to be here. Rang my mum, went to Ethan's family house. The footsteps and the door shutting was extreme that day. So if anyone else is aware of spirits or the bracelet situation even, I found that quite strange. Feel free to comment or let me know like how I can go about that. I get not everybody believes in these kind of stories. It happened to me, which took me to believe that these stories actually happen, because I'm not agnostic, I keep saying that, but I choose not to believe because it does scare me. But now I feel more at ease, which is why I felt like I could tell my story about Gus, the ghost.